Retribution Paladin in Season 1 looks simple on paper, but if you're raiding or pushing Mythic Plus, there are some non-negotiables you just have to get right. Your damage just won't be good enough. Today we're breaking down the exact builds, spell priorities, and decisions that actually matter if you want consistent damage in real content. There's a ton to cover here, but it's all essential if you're looking to play your best. But before we even touch things like gear or talents, we need to talk about the fundamentals. Because if those aren't right, nothing else will save your damage. Most Retribution players aren't losing damage because they picked the wrong build or are using a different item. They are losing damage because they aren't playing correctly. Retribution as a specialization is entirely focused around controlled burst windows, not button mashing, not reacting randomly to procs, and certainly not ignoring holy power intake. Your damage comes from stacking modifiers properly and entering your burst windows prepared. You should know exactly what to press and when to press it. So let's briefly touch on our abilities and what they do, then we'll dive into some more advanced topics. I'll go through this pretty quickly, but there are some basics that you might have missed. Retribution revolves entirely around building and spending holy power, and each one of our abilities is directly tied to our output. Let's touch on builders first. First of which is Blade of Justice, and it is our most important builder. It generates the most holy power per cast and can be heavily empowered through our Apex talents. It also applies Expurgation, which lets us do 5% more holy damage to enemies that have the debuff present. It will be frequently reset from Art of War procs or Righteous Cause, and it's a big deal. Next up, we have Judgment. Think of this as your bread and butter builder. It has a relatively low cooldown, plus 2 charges from taking the talent Improved Judgment. It allows our spenders to do 20% more damage, and on top of that, it also resets semi-frequently when we use Final Verdict. It only generates 1 holy power, but it really is the heartbeat of the rotation. Judgment also transforms into Hammer of Wrath when you have Avenging Wrath activated, and it looks pretty cool. That Hammer of Wrath is identical in both functionality and gameplay to Judgment, it just does more damage. And both abilities can also proc your mastery bonus called High Lord's Judgment. And so our last builder is Templar Strike or Templar Slash. And this one's simple. You press this button when you have nothing else to press. If you take Crusading Strikes, which it looks like you will for all of Season 1 content at this point, some of your holy power generation will just happen passively, and you won't have to use this filler spell. I do want to insert a disclaimer here that Blizzard does tend to do tuning throughout the season. Things are subject to change, so there is a chance what I say here will change a little bit. So we've covered builders, now on to spenders. And your options are pretty limited here. You're either going to spend holy power on Final Verdict or Divine Storm. Final Verdict is our primary single target spender, where Divine Storm will be used on cleave and AoE. These spenders do have some interactions with our hero talents, but their primary purpose is really just damage. Now on to the exciting stuff. Retribution Paladin has cooldowns galore. Wake of Ashes generates 3 holy power and can trigger key parts of your hero talents. It can even activate Avenging Wrath if you've talented into Radiant Glory, and leave a nasty burn through Burn to Ash. And since we're playing Templar, this ability also turns into Hammer of Light. And Hammer of Light is really the engine behind how Templar functions, but in short, it consumes 5 holy power to do a healthy amount of damage for both single target and AoE. And it also activates multiple Templar specific buffs. Yet again, it's a big deal. We have Avenging Wrath as our major DPS cooldown. It's available every minute and brings great benefits like 20% increased damage and healing, 20% critical strike, and, as I mentioned before, turns Judgment into Hammer of Wrath. And we can even choose the talent into Crusade for up to a 20% boost to our haste. It's a pretty good cooldown. Our last cooldown of note is Divine Toll, and this ability generates between 1 and 5 holy power based on how many targets are in range. In reality, it's a beefed up Judgment or a Hammer of Wrath cast, but it does have some additional benefits we'll touch on later. But you can think of this ability primarily as an activator. The base spell is okay, but the benefits from using it are where you get the most gain. So in simplest terms, you use your builders to generate holy power, and then spend holy power with either Final Verdict or Divine Storm based on the situation you're in. You'll want to use all of your cooldowns roughly around the same time and really set yourself up for max damage. And if you aren't doing this properly, you will see substantially lower output. So, you've got a grasp of the basics, you know what we're looking at, so let's dive into the talents. First and foremost, all of our builds will be using the Templar Hero Talent tree. And at this point, Herald of the Sun is considerably behind in both AoE and single target, and I'm unable to recommend playing it in competitive content. You can still play it in things like Delves or in the open world, but when it comes to Raid and Mythic Plus, Templar is your best bet. So this is going to be our default raid build. We'll be using this as the framework for all of the builds I mentioned today, and specifically within the Templar tree, we only have 2 points to mention. All of our builds here do take Sanctification, and our single target builds take Seal of the Templar. And with how Blizzard designed the specialization tree, there isn't really much choice here either. You are just going to path through the tree and pick up all of the single target focus nodes where possible. We will path to both Burn to Ash as well as Crusade. And you might look at this and think, wait a minute, Jesir, why are we not taking Judge, Jury, and Executioner? Burn to Ash is boring. And I'd say, well, you're right. Burn to Ash is boring, but it's also deceptively strong. With our completed tier set, we double down on expurgation damage and some Templar-specific effects that are also considered damage over time effects. You get more benefit from this than you would really expect to, unfortunately. This is one of the talent points I'd like to keep an eye out on, and as we receive tuning adjustments throughout Season 1, it could shift the balance to pick up a different capstone point. But as of right now, these offer the most consistent output, and it puts all of our focus on a 1-minute burst window. I'll say it here and I'll say it again, we want to stack our cooldowns together. We do pick up Crusading Strikes as our preferred choice for this node, but otherwise it's pretty cookie cutter. We grab Judgment of Justice and not Empyrean Power, and we stay far away from Radiant Glory. For Mythic Plus, things change a little bit. We drop points in Judgment of Justice and Heart of the Crusader, and in their place, we pick up Tempest of the Lightbringer, Blade of Vengeance, and Blessed Champion. That's it. We don't sacrifice much single target DPS to pick up these additional points. None of these are incredibly strong AoE talents, but they do contribute to our AoE output in a meaningful way. I want to give special mention to our class tree here. While I do have Divine Resonance marked for this specific build, Quickened Invocation still may be a good pickup based on the content you're doing. Don't be afraid to swap the node as you see fit. And Divine Hammer is quite strong. Having it up every 30 seconds can really offer some fairly consistent output, and it's just gonna happen. This Mythic Plus build attempts to shift as little power as possible from our single target while picking up the highest impact AoE talents. For boss-specific recommendations, keep an eye out for my Raid Ready guides. We'll have guides for Voidspire, Dream Rift, and the March on Keldanos available shortly before Raid release. They'll go in depth and provide the best possible recommendations for each and every encounter. We'll not cover the details here, but those videos are going to be our best bet for those. And I do want to call special attention to a few nodes that are absolute traps. Empyrean Power used to be a great option for AoE, but Blizzard adjusted how this spell works, and now this is one of the worst talents in our tree. Radiant Glory is the other trap here. We ran Radiant Glory for really the entirety of the War Within, but it's no longer able to proc Avenging Wrath for Holy Power spend. That removes a ton of value there. This node is now a shell of what it once was, so we get half the duration on the Avenging Wrath, and a benefit of a lower cooldown, but no real bonus. This might seem fine on paper, but in reality, we gain so much damage from taking other points, the trade-off really isn't worth it. You can still take this talent for delves and leveling content if you prefer, but at least right now, I can't recommend it for Mythic Plus or raiding. Since we gained a few additional talent points to spend in the class tree, we have a huge degree of flexibility here. I've highlighted my recommended selections in gold, but you can spend your remaining points in any of these green nodes based on whatever dungeon or encounter you're doing. Really, play to your strengths and play what you think you're going to get the most impact out. A special note for the Divine Resonance and Quicken Invocation node: the majority of the time we're going to run Divine Resonance, but Quicken Invocation can be useful if the encounters have enemies that are able to be attacked every 30 seconds. I've also included a Delve specific build here as well. I won't review it in detail, but it just modifies the Mythic Plus build to be a little bit better of a fit for solo content. All build links I've talked about here can be found in the description below. And I do want to give a big shout out to Bolus here. He writes both the Wowhead and Icy Veins guides and provides great written recommendations. I'd also recommend taking a look at those if you want to see a written format as well. Now that you know the basics and which talents we're going to pick, let's focus on our opener and spell priorities. Out of anything I say here today, this is going to be one of the most important things. So we'll start with our opener, and it's relatively simple. You are going to start the pull with Avenging Wrath and Divine Toll macro together. I've included the macro I've used both here and in the description of the video. And the start attack portion of the macro is incredibly important because it starts your auto attack swing. That's going to generate holy power through crusading strikes, and you don't want to miss that. You'll also want to use your potion here as well. I don't include mine in my macro, but it should 100% be used before you activate Avenging Wrath and Divine Toll. Next up is Execution Sentence, and then you'll follow up with your Wake of Ashes and Hammer of Light combo. Once this sequence is complete, you'll need to return to your regular priority. The goal of this opener is to get all of your major cooldowns recharging as fast as possible and maximize damage during your Execution Sentence and Avenging Wrath windows. It's about stacking those cooldowns and getting lots of damage out. And I've been asked a lot about applying Expurgation on the pull to benefit from Holy Flames. But initial impressions conclude that there is limited to no noticeable gain from doing that first. We're talking like 0.1% difference in overall damage, and likely even less on some encounters. There are a couple reasons why, but it's not really worth going into detail here. And when I do get my hands on the Sims, I can do a deeper dive and report back. But for now, you can go without using it in your opener. It's not going to make or break it either way. The choice is yours. Our rotation can be split into two parts: during Avenging Wrath, and then outside of cooldowns. When we have Avenging Wrath active, our priority is going to change. During cooldown windows, you're going to want to prioritize the following. You're still going to combine Execution Sentence and Avenging Wrath to start your burst window. And it is okay to start this at 1 holy power, but I wouldn't go into it with more than that. You risk wasting a ton of holy power. You'll follow that up with our Wake of Ashes and Hammer of Light combo, and once that's complete, you'll shift into our normal priority system. If you're at 5 holy power, you're going to want to use Templar's Verdict. Otherwise, use Divine Toll to gain holy power and trigger the Divine Resonance buff. Expurgation should almost always be active, but if it isn't, make sure to reapply it with Blade of Justice. Hammer of Wrath is going to be your priority builder during Wings, and it is especially strong since it is enhanced by Divine Resonance. It will generate 2 holy power when this buff is active and double strike. So this means a lot of damage is consolidated into one button press. We like that a lot. Otherwise, spend with Final Verdict at 4 holy power. And make sure to build with Blade of Justice. Keep in mind, you'll keep automatically generating holy power through crusading strikes, and make sure none of that goes to waste. One other note here. At this point, there is not a noticeable gain to place the Apex talent proc higher in priority. But if it procs right at the end of your Avenging Wrath duration, it might make sense to just send it. Play that one by ear. And it's incredibly important that you follow the recommendations here. This allows you to get maximum damage during our burst window and really make the most of the cooldowns we have. Outside of cooldown windows, your focus is going to change slightly. You're going to want to balance building and spending holy power. So if you can build, then you're going to build. And if you can't build, then you're going to spend. You'll always want to make sure you keep your abilities cooling down as much as possible. So make sure you follow the priority system outlined here. The goal is to have little to no holy power waste. Don't overcap or spend your holy power too early. So here's the priority. First up, if you have a Hammer of Light ready from your Light's Deliverance stacks, this is going to be the biggest bang for your buck. Otherwise, if you're at 5 holy power, make sure you spend with Final Verdict. Once every 30 seconds, repeat your Wake of Ashes into Hammer of Light combo and make sure to not overcap holy power here. If you're running Quickened Invocation, do use Divine Toll after that combo completes. Yet again, don't waste holy power. But for the most part, you likely won't be using Divine Toll outside of Avenging Wrath. Your tier set will keep Expurgation up the majority of the time, but if that isn't active for whatever reason, make sure you keep that debuff rolling on your target. Judgment is next on the priority list, and if you're at 2 charges, make sure to spend it. And the reason we prioritize this above Blade of Justice is because Judgment can reset from Final Verdict casts, and we always want to optimize holy power gains. Then, we're going to use Blade of Justice when it's available. When it's not, you're going to cast Judgment with 1 charge remaining, and then spend holy power on Final Verdict if you can do nothing else. And another note here about our Apex talent, the Empowered Blade of Justice proc hits quite hard, and depending on what tuning changes that Blizzard pushes through, it could adjust this priority. There may be an argument for moving up Blade of Justice when Art of War procs, but only extended playtime and sim optimization will really tell. And for AoE, almost nothing changes. All that you're going to do is you're going to swap Final Verdict for Divine Storm and leave it at that. The rotation is identical. So we've covered a lot of things, but how do we take the information we've learned and take good performance and make it great? So outside of performing your rotation flawlessly, which we should strive to do, you won't be perfect, but you can try. There are multiple ways you can look to maximize damage, and the most important of them is boss uptime. The more time you spend connected to your target and pressing abilities, the more damage you are going to do. This means doing things like running out at the last possible second for a mechanic, or using your mobility to get back to the boss quickly, or just sticking to the boss as you move across the room. All of these are simple, but they're really important. Let's say you have a debuff that takes 10 seconds before it falls off. Some people might run out when it has 9 seconds left and sit there and wait. That's a bad move. That means you might lose 7 or 8 seconds of uptime you could have had before, which means 7 or 8 seconds of actual damage. You're better off running out at that 2 or so second mark, getting to a comfortable spot, your debuff drops, and then you run back in. Strike the balance between safety and doing damage, but finding that balance is very important to doing good damage. And in Midnight, a couple things are different from previous iterations, and I want to touch on those. Since Execution Sentence was redesigned in Midnight, it's incredibly important that you take full benefit of how this thing works. So the reason I mention this is anytime you use it, it is going to splash damage around that primary target. It's not a big radius, so you really have to be conscious about when you activate this ability. This might mean waiting an additional second or 2 for enemies to be grouped up properly, instead of just letting it rip. You want to time it correctly so you get the most benefit of what limited funnel it offers. So be aware of that. And then Execution Sentence should also be aligned with any damage amplifications if possible. Some encounters will have them throughout the expansion, so do keep an eye out for any situations where that might be applicable. One other thing to keep an eye out for is aiming our Apex talent. This one's a little bit weird, but since the effect is a cone, it's going to go based on which direction you're facing. And this means you're always going to need to be aiming this thing, and it's got to be aimed in the right direction. So do make a focused effort to both position properly and then adjust your positioning when needed. If you've got additional enemies to hit, absolutely make sure you're facing the right direction so this effect hits them. And the best tip I can give here is look at what others are doing. You might have some great ideas on how to optimize your fight, but the reality is, unless you're in one of the top guilds, some people are going to get that stick time before you do. So they're going to get to practice and make those optimizations. So saying that, check out this tool called Lorgs. It lets you see what other players are doing, and you can filter for different ability uses, defensives, potions, etc. Really look at what you think is going to make the most of a difference in a fight, and you can follow what they're doing. Do take that info with a grain of salt, but it can give you some really good recommendations before you start progressing a new boss. Do a little research and set yourself up for success here. And so before we get into character prep, I do want to talk about some of the most common mistakes I see from other Retribution Paladin players. And the number one thing that I see folks do incorrectly is they do not spend their holy power correctly. And this is happening a lot. A lot of people will just spend when they have 3 holy power available, or just as soon as they possibly can. And that's not always the correct choice. Sometimes it can be, but for the most part, that's not a correct decision. And on the other hand, I also see a ton of players overcap their holy power. This could be from accidentally using a generator when you should have spent instead, or just not properly tracking crusading strikes. They do make a big difference, and every holy power counts. The less waste we have, the better. And another really big issue I see is bad user interfaces. I mean, the transition to Midnight has been anything but seamless. And utilize the built-in tools like the cooldown manager to center your abilities and make things that matter front and center. And if you want to, use additional add-ons to make that even more efficient. Hide the excess information and really focus on what gets you results. Keep the area around your feet nice and clear so you can see if you're either in a mechanic or out, and play with visibility in mind. And the last mistake I'll mention here is just incorrect cooldown usage. We have a very specific setup to get max damage in our cooldown windows, and so make sure you follow the priority system and you'll do okay. If not, you're gonna see your damage drop. Let's finish up with talking about how we prepare our character. And things like gear, enchants, and consumables might seem basic or unimportant, but they do contribute a meaningful amount of damage. And the great thing here is we can control a huge portion of this, all the way through hero track gear. The exception, of course, is raid lock trinkets, weapons, or unique items. And you're gonna have to do content to get those, but everything else is readily accessible. So I'll toss a visual aid here to show you all of the gems, consumables, enchants, and all of that related stuff that you're going to end up using. And I'll have another detailed video in the future on how to optimize gear specifically, but a good rule of thumb is sim your gear and upgrades through raid bots. It will take all of those little things into account and give you the best recommendation to improve your gear or how to optimize. We do want to prioritize gear that has mastery and haste at this point. Critical strike is also good for us, so don't be afraid to grab a piece or two if you're able to. Versatility is our worst stat, so avoid that as much as you can, but it is okay if you still have some of it. Verse is not a bad thing, and if it's your only piece with it on there, that's okay, especially in early gearing. And one big reminder here is Blizzard is going to push tuning changes throughout the season. So some of what I've said here will be subject to change. Do keep your eyes on the channel for any critical updates so you're always going to be in the know. I will also be releasing raid ready guides and masterclass guides as the season progresses. And as a quick reminder, focus on the fundamentals first. Then worry about nuanced talent choices and gearing as you become more comfortable. So if you found this helpful, give the video a like and subscribe for more Retribution content and more guides in the future. And I do want to give a big thank you for all of our patrons here that support the channel. You make creating content like this possible. For others, if you'd also like to become a member, you can get some really great benefits like log reviews, UI support, blog updates, Jesir radio, and more. Go on and take a look. Thank you for watching. Best of luck in Season 1, but we'll see you in the next one.